Good day, beautiful people. Listen, I had to get my lighting together because last week, I'm chocolate anyway, right? But I was extra chocolate last week. So I said today I'm gonna make sure that I got the light right in my face so that this way I can be still chocolate, but this way, I'm giving y'all a little bit more of the chocolate face that you can really see. Because I went back and looked at those videos and I was like, oh my goodness. I said, you know what? We are blending into the chair just as pretty and chocolate as possible. But today I wanted to let you know that we have a brand new guest that's going to be on Give It to the People Live. And what we do here is we focus on BIPOC businesses and we focus on Black owned businesses, women owned businesses, to really shine a light on what they do. And so, Give It to the People is a mental wealth company that is focused on helping you get your mind right and your money right. So, every time we bring somebody on, they're either going to help you with a mindset or an idea that you may have for business or just something to inspire you, because that's what we do over here. So, without further ado, boom, 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 I get to bring on Mr. Corey Gumbs. And the thing is, I don't have that many men that come on the show. I don't know why. Men do not apply as much. I have no idea why that is. But Corey, welcome. How are you today?
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be
Yes.
here.
Yes. So, Corey, just give the people a little background about you, and then we're going to jump into the Black Podcasters Association. But what is Corey all about as far as him as a person? And then we'll jump into, I know, right? That's like such a deep question. And then we'll jump into the business side of things.
I'm just a normal, regular guy who just saw who had his issues and decided to get to create a solution to a problem that he was witnessing. So, but some of my background, my background comes from the music business. As a producer, when I was younger, I tried to do the rap game and all that stuff. Growing up here in New York City, I'm also a web developer, and I got into podcasting actually trying to create a music business website back in the early 2000s, and then life happened. I had my first child, and then you got to be responsible, and that can kind
It
of
sounds
fizzle
good.
away, right? But I've always been attached to podcasting. I'm a fan first, but about right before the pandemic started, I decided was working Uber, was in school, going back to school for web development, and had a car accident
Mhm.
and decided I needed to, I couldn't work anymore. So I needed something to bring in income. So I was like, well, my friend and I were going to start a podcast. And instead of just keep talking about it, I took my last 2 grand
Mhm.
and got this crazy idea of creating a mobile podcast studio
Mhm.
and bought the equipment. And then it's just been history ever since. And then the pandemic happened. So that
Yeah.
blew up that model. And then I had to pivot. So I've just been dealing more with, then I started my group on Facebook that turned into the Black Podcasters Association. So it's just been an evolution of just step by step of just life coming at you and pivoting and trying to figure out a solution to it.
But I love it. And I'm going to tell you why, because I think that a lot of times people would let one thing stop them. And, I always say, that the vision is still the same, but how you get there could be totally, completely different. Because we probably have something similar in relation to when we started the first Black owned, woman owned podcast studio in North Carolina. And that was in June. And then the pandemic. So it was just like you're getting up and then boom, then you have to kind of shut everything down. And we tried to, well, we kept everything open, until October of the year of the pandemic of 2020. But it was just like, why are we wasting money? Right. And
Right.
so figure out another way to do, what you were doing and just make it successful. And so one of the things that I would think that you have in common with like She Podcast, because we were talking about this ahead of time, was that you started your group, right? The membership portion on Facebook. So, what made you say, listen, I'm going to take this from Facebook to turn this into the Black Podcasters Association?
That was always the goal from the beginning.
Okay.
When I decided to create the group and really try to solve the problem, which was the diversity issue, and with the pandemic bringing a lot more people of color into the podcasting space, I was like, I actually looked back to my music roots, which was there's organizations like ASCAP, BMI, CSAC that help
Mhm.
with artists or people in the industry, artists, musicians, whatever. And they deal with like the artist development portion. They have conferences and educations and seminars as part of your membership. So I was like, well, I basically was like, let me copy that blueprint and bring that to the industry because I didn't see it. So for me, that was really the thing, was trying to figure out how to turn it into, how to go from free to a paid community.
Mhm.
But for me, it was, I'd never done anything like this before. So I was like, I was learning as I was going along. And then Talib from Afros and Audio, he came to me and we sat down, we talked, and we realized we were going in the same direction, had a lot of the same views in regards to Black creatives in this space. And it was just like, okay, well, let's figure out how to turn what we're both doing into a bigger community, and that's what we did. And 2021 actually, yeah.
That collaboration though, a lot of
Yeah.
times we do not want to share, okay? And
Yeah.
so what was the thing about your relationship that made you say I can trust this person, we can do this together, and that just made you feel like this was the way to go? Because a lot of times people do even start out with people and then it ends up where one person's vision is totally completely different and they end up not being able to work together. But what was it about what Talib was doing and what you were doing that you said we can really make this something and let's do it together?
Well, I think the first thing was because I'm a competitive person, and I'm not, I tell the story of time. I'm like, I was
Okay.
looking at the people who are already in the industry, who were already doing things, and when I came up with the community, it was always like, well, how can we make this bigger?
Um,
Conferences, award shows, and all that stuff. So it was like, so when Talib, when I living in New York, when I found out about Afros and Audio, I had just missed the first one because it was in
okay.
Brooklyn. So I missed it by a couple of months, and I was just doing a quick Google search. So I knew of Talib. He was a member of our community, and I think to answer your question, I think for what was like, one, we both had a need. He wanted to have a community so that when people left the conference, the festival, they had a
Something.
place that can still continue to grow and take that energy. And I was trying to find something where I was thinking about doing my own conference, and I was like, well, when we were talking, he was like, you have the brand, you have the connections, I'm trying, and I have the community. It was like, well,
Mhm.
it just made sense. And I think it was, not having the ego, both of us being on the same page. We do have different visions for our own products, but for what we do, but the overall goal was having the same mission, which was to try to create a space for Black creatives and professionals in the industry to advocate and to support them and to push our content forward and deal with the diversity issues that we see in the industry.
Yeah, no. And I mean, I think that, when you start to look at the necessity, and I always look at the fact that is there somebody else doing it? And they might be, but they might not be doing it exactly the same way, or they're doing it and they could still be serving the same population, but there's always some kind of difference, some kind of nuance to what somebody else is doing. Do you feel like there are enough resources out there for creators of color, or that there should be more?
Um, that's a good question. There can always be more. There can always be better, right? So it's hard to answer that question. For me, I know, like, to piggyback off the first question in this one, it was like, okay, you're doing this over here
Mhm.
instead of me compete, because we're really targeting the same
Yeah.
audience, right? Instead of competing, let's figure out how we can support each other and help whatever I can do on my side to help get you to where you need to get, and we can collaborate. So I've just taken that mentality across the board, and I feel like that's how you build your resources, right?
Mhm.
Is like with the Black Podcasting Awards, a lot of these people are members of our community already, but I was just like, hey, how can I support you with what you're doing over here, or how can we work together? So She Podcast was one of our first supporters when we first launched the community. Black Podcasting Awards. So it was like, how do we maximize at what everybody? Because you already started the process, you already have the infrastructure, you already have the
Yeah.
brand and the connection. So it doesn't make sense for me to build something from the ground up when you already have it. And there's too much money. And I always tell people there's too much money in this industry, even though it's still a new industry and it's starting to grow and it's still trying to figure its way, and still, working out the kinks. I mean, they project $4 billion of advertising coming to the industry. So there's
Mhm.
enough money to go around and for all of us to eat. So it doesn't make sense to waste money on resources when somebody else is doing it. We could just see where we could provide support and help with.
Yeah. And I mean, I wish more people thought like that. I think that, there's always, whenever we do stuff, is a goal to see, well, who can we collaborate with first? And then who else you want to pull in, and it doesn't mean you have to collaborate with everybody, but somebody that really does understand what the vision is and that also is willing to play their part. And I always, to me, say collaboration means we're both bringing something to the table. It's not just one person bringing it and then the other person's trying to eat off of what the first person does. It's we're both bringing something for the whole of what we're doing, and that to me makes more sense. So how did you transition though from making that proposition of saying, listen, this is free, to, okay, now we need to charge, and I need you to understand that we need to charge because these are the things that we're bringing to you. What was that kind of transition like? Because I would imagine some people were like, oh, well, it was free, so I'm not going to pay. And then other people were like, well, I love what you're doing, so let me pay. What was that transition like?
Oh man, so some of it, I'm a Star Wars fan, so I'm just anybody who's a part of the community. I started from the Facebook group because when I was like we got to raise our standard, right? A lot of people were just putting out content; they weren't investing in they weren't really truly investing in their product or in their self development. And there
Yeah.
has to be a monetary portion of that, right? There has to be an investment both from a monetary point of view as well as a mental point of view. And I was already preparing people in the group, like, listen, you gotta step your game up. You gotta invest your money in equipment. You got to do this. You do this. We would have conversations in the group about business and stuff like that. So it starts there. But to be honest with you, if I could go back and redo it, I might do it differently than we did. But we kind of rushed it. So
Okay.
Talib came to me in November of 2021.
Uh,
Yeah, November 2021. We made the announcement. We worked out our kinks and got our contract together. We made the announcement to his community and our community in Facebook in December. About a month later, like less than a month later, we soft launched in January, and then we was like, well, Black History Month is coming. It would make perfect sense. Black Podcast Association launches in Black History Month.
yeah.
So we decided to do like a meeting, like a Zoom meeting. We invited people, they showed up. So right there, I know those are going to be the people who are going to be the initial. I kind of had an idea from the participation in the Facebook group who was going to
Okay.
come over. We had over 2,000 members at the time. And I was like, well, if I could capture 10% of that, 200 people, right, I would be happy.
Mm-hmm.
We did it. We made an offer you can't refuse. We were like, listen, you get it now. You get it at the founder's price lifetime, right? We'll lock you in at this price lifetime, significantly cheaper than what we were going to launch with. And we actually undervalued ourselves when we launched, but it was the rush. That's why I say if I could go back and re-examine it, we would do things a little bit different because we kind of rushed things.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what do we didn't know what to charge people, so we like just keep it affordable because I didn't want to break people's pockets.
Uh-huh.
Because nickel and diming happens in this industry a lot, so I was trying to like not allow that to happen either. But long story short, about 40 to 50, about 50 people joined us.
Okay.
And at first, initially, I was like, oh man, that's it. But I'm glad we did that because it would allow me to, over the first course of our year, to scale, make mistakes, and they help create the culture of the community that is now like what people love. So,
Okay.
um, so sometimes when you're thinking about it, I was trying to think of scaling, but I didn't want to scale too fast or too small. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of happy with the results so far.
No, I mean, and I think that's important. And I mean, even if you take into consideration the goal that you initially had in mind wasn't reached immediately, but at the same time, you knew if you had 50, you could get 50 more and 50 more and 50 more and
Right,
get to,
right,
and I think that once you start to, because I think some of the things are people think, okay, you build it and they're automatically going to come. And that's not the case, and I've tried to tell people that over and over and over. Okay, so it's like you put up a website today. Nobody knows. Like, and your website host knows that you have the domain name, but nobody else even knows that this site
right.
exists. So you have to do the work to get it out there. And so I want to commend you on one very specific thing. You will stay on LinkedIn. I swear, I'm like, look, every time I open up my LinkedIn, Corey is up there. And I love it because every time you are showing people something to educate them. So when we look at what you're doing for your platform, it is a consistent bombardment of learn something in order to improve yourself. And so did you kind of say, well, listen, members, what can you bring to the table? Or did you say, members, what do you want to see? How did you kind of shape that education curriculum for the group?
Everything started. So for the first 2 years of the Facebook group, that's kind of what I was trying to figure out. I knew I
Okay.
wanted to educate, right? Education is important, especially when you're trying to do these kind of things, right? The people have questions. That was the main driving force for me to start the group in the first place. Was I was seeing the questions Black creators were asking and the answers they were getting from other groups of people, and there was a cultural difference, there was a finance difference, and I was
Mm,
like, and it was a lot of disconnection, and I was like, we need to have a place for ourselves, right? So in the
Mm-hmm.
group, I started with that. So I started learning with that. So we would have like conversations, debates, and then as other members, people joined the group, and they would come in with their expertise because we have people of all levels. We have people who've been doing this for like 15 years. We have award-winning podcasters. We have people who are just getting started. So for us to converge, for me, the most important thing was how do we raise the standard of our content? And the only way to do that is I always look, there's a commercial used to play out here for a company said the best customer is educated customer. So I've always said, and that's how I've always anything I've ever done is like, and why some fields I didn't succeed in because sometimes I overeducate, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, in order for us to achieve this, educate. So for me, it was like, well, how do I prop up black business people or people in this space that don't get heard and that have a lot of knowledge and influence that they could bring to this to other
Mm-hmm.
people? Because that was the main thing. Was like, if you notice, like I have people from other groups come in, but my main target is to bring people of our community to do these education seminars and stuff like that. So it was like, how do I do it? And it was just an evolution of one, me trying to figure out, okay, this is what you need, keeping a heat check of my community. I'm always connected to my members. Most of them have my phone number. They know how to reach me. We get into conversations. Sometimes I'll see conversations or see somebody ask a particular question, and I'm like, if they're asking that question, maybe other people are. So let me find somebody to answer that question. So it's kind of like a number of things, but mainly keeping your pulse, and then always trying to figure out what is of value to your community. And so the best way to ask what is value is to ask them, what are you looking for? What do you need help with? Where are you
Mm-hmm.
struggling? And then you find those tools and resources to bring to them to help them solve that problem. And then you just keep iterating and iterating through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, what tool would you say? And it could be an app, it could be just something that you use. I don't know if it's editing, it could be something that is hardware. What is your most useful tool in podcasting?
My most useful tool?
What do you feel like
Yes.
is the most useful thing to you? Okay, well, yes, but everybody can get it. Come on. Else, not just you with your brain. We can absorb that through the group. But outside of you and just your brain, what is a tool that everybody can use, or something that you use that makes your life easier, better, faster, more efficient?
I've been playing around a lot with, well, as a web developer I already knew of it, but as a programmer I already dabbled in it. It's sort coming. But I've been using a lot of like ChatGPT, the AI stuff more like the past couple of weeks, and it's been
Okay.
helping me with my copywriting and ideas and how to work, how to learn more things and how to put things together. So that's a great resource. But I think the most important in the podcast space, the most important thing that it's a communication, right? Podcasting is really not, whether it's video or audio, you're communicating. It's this thing that's right here in front of me, a microphone. You got to have the right microphone, and
Mm-hmm.
you got to make the investment, and then they're not expensive. So when I see people out here and they're doing work and they're not using the proper tools, that's my background, audio, so it kind of like triggers me a little bit. But this is the most important tool you can have. That you don't need to have the video camera because people need to hear you. And
Mm-hmm.
without, you got video without audio, nobody knows what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure you invest in your microphone.
Okay. Now I love that. Now I was gonna ask you about this whole just stream that's going into AI, and you kind of touched on it a little bit. And so, do you feel like it is going to kind of just take over and get rid of some jobs in relation to podcasting? Because a lot of times there were things that other people were doing, and now you can do some things faster. I'm not necessarily saying better, but I do think that the pace of AI is something that is kind of taking over a little bit. But what are your thoughts on that?
That's a whole nother conversation. But
The short version.
the question I'll ask somebody is when the combustible engine became mass produced and cars became a thing, and horses, they thought
Uh,
horses were going to be, but we still found uses for horses.
yeah.
Um, I think like any technological advancement, jobs are going to be lost because we're always trying to solve these any time technology advances, it's trying to solve a problem. It's trying to make things more efficient. So yes, you might lose some jobs that typically were already dying, and I think that's the part people don't realize. These jobs are already on their way out. I look at it like anything else. Computers are stupid. Computers do what you tell them to do. That goes the same for AI and really technically machine learning. it does what you tell it to do, right? It just compiles all this data and does it way faster than the human brain can. So it's impressive to all of us. It's access. So I think at the end of the day, it's the people who learn how to use it as a tool and incorporate what they already do that will bring more value to their clients,
Mhm.
versus being more afraid that you're going to lose your job. Those are them, age old adage: you adapt or die, right?
Mhm.
So it's figuring out how to use these tools in your industry, um, to help making you more valuable than to phase you out. I don't know
Mhm.
if that answers your question, but
No, it does, because I think that people get this mass hysteria of like, oh my God, jobs are going. Now, true enough, jobs are going to go. But at the same time, I think that if you can take something and you can see the possibility in it, right? Because to me, that's what I look at is when I see people that use the same technology, but in a different way. I'm just like, oh, wow. So, like, for me, I've been going to a lot of, because even though I teach on a regular basis, I'm teaching the way that I think works the best for me and the people that I'm serving.
right,
But if I'm in a different industry, I might use it a different way, like, and so there are certain prompts and things that you might ask that I might not ask because I wasn't even thinking about that. Or because if we're in a totally different industry, then we would have different language that goes along with that, right? And then, of course, however you're brought up, whatever your grammar is, the way that you talk on a regular basis, all of that plays into how effective your answer is going to be, right? And then how in depth you go, because you can keep on going and going and going. And I've been seeing, and I told somebody the other day, a whole bunch of workshops that are not workshops. And that's what bothers my nerves. So when I go to something and I don't really learn anything because you're trying to sell me something, so you're telling me the least amount that you could possibly tell me, so
yeah,
that this one is like, let me try to learn more. That bothers me because I'm not that kind of person. So I always try to give, just like you said, more than a person is expecting, because I feel like if I'm going to give you, an hour of your time, you're going to give me that and I'm going to give it to you. Let me give you the most, that I can possibly give you in that time frame. Now, after that, then we might charge a little bit more or there's a consultation. But during that time frame, you should be able to ask questions. And I've noticed that there are so many people that are doing workshops and they don't have the answer, Sway. Like, because it's kind of like, well, let's get on here and do something because this is trendy. And I think that that's not always the best approach.
yeah,
And so I've learned at least one thing from a lot of the different workshops that I've gone to. But I think that, being as helpful as possible just makes more sense to me. So,
yeah.
and I'm sure that you've probably been to workshops that people are not as helpful as they could be. So what would you say to that?
Well, that's what I didn't want to be. That's what I didn't want.
Yep.
That's one reason why our membership was kind of so low. Was like I don't want to nickel it. It was either the choice of we make it a higher price and you get nickel and dime for everything, or we keep it
Um,
affordable, because there is a finance issue with podcasting that I'm trying to figure out and solve as well, right? Um,
mhm,
I like I'm trying to figure out how to recession proof our community, right? Because
mhm,
this is for a lot of people. This is not just that they use podcasting. It's a luxury. But to answer your question, for me with the workshops, I didn't want to do that because I've had I've done real estate invest. I've been to those kind of workshops. It's like, well, you just did this to get. It's just a funnel for you, right? And I don't like that. And I didn't want that to be. I want you to walk away. My motto with the community is I want you, when you join us, I want you to be in a different place a year from now. I want you to be able to look back and be like, you made some progress. So when I select people to come, or when people offer me, I do vet them to a degree. Like, and a lot of times these are people who I've come to become. They started to become friends with me. I've been
mhm,
following them. We've talked, and I like what they're doing in their what they say and do. So when I ask somebody to, or when they present to me, they want to come. It's the first thing is like, I want you to. I know it's only an hour, typically an hour, maybe sometimes an hour and a half.
mhm.
And I know this is your business, and I have no problem with you trying to get, because I'm not paying you. I have no problem with you trying to sell your business, but I want my people to walk away with like at least a firm understanding where they know where to go look for the information they're looking for after this, because you can only do but so much in that short amount of time.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah,
um, but that is really a big pet peeve of mine. Is like you go to workshop and it's like they're trying to sell you like, I'm here because I don't have $80,000 for your coaching consulting program or
yeah.
whatever. So it triggers me too.
Okay, all right. And I just wanted, I mean, because I knew yours were not that kind of workshop. So I
Yeah,
just want people to know, like, if you're going to do it, give me the value, right? Because then
right.
that's what you're paying for. And I think that when people come, so in order for people to go to your workshops, they do have to be members of the community, correct?
So originally, that's what I did,
Okay.
what where for me where I pivoted was I was like, after the first couple of workshops, I was like, yo, these people have really great information,
Uh-huh.
and for me, it was like this is the information the industry needs. So
Uh-huh.
how I set it up was I charge a small nominal fee, like $10-15 for you to if you're not a member.
Uh-huh.
Um, Not a member, you pay like $10 or $15 to come to one of our workshops, and I'll pay the person from that. Um, but if you're a member, it's free because that's why I created the community. So
Yeah.
I try to encourage people like, yo, it's $10-15, but if you become a member for $10 a month or $100 for the year, you're getting all of them for free. So it kind of makes
Yeah.
sense because I
Yeah.
really wanted to. That was my funnel to get you to come into the community. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, but that's how I do it. Like I try to make things affordable, but I do. There is a side of me that is starting to get to the point where I'm like, maybe we need to start adding more value, charging more because it seems like people don't really take value when you're giving it to something at such a low price. Unfortunately, even though the
Mm-hmm.
goal is to not only just help Black podcast creators, but the industry as a whole with this information. So, that's the dilemma of being a business owner sometimes.
It is. It is that up, that down, that should I, should not. And it's just one
Yeah.
of those things that we just have to do a trial and error. And I think that, people always tell them when you raise your prices, you are going to lose some people. And you're also going to gain some people. And there's some people that are going to stay the course with you, regardless
Mm.
of what you do. But we just have to kind of try it out. So we do have some comments. The Tech John said over here exactly, what Podcasters Live said. So basically, in relation to the conversation that we were having about adding value and not just getting on there just trying to sell something, and so Podcasters Live said people pay attention to what they pay for, and they do, right? And so the thing is, they don't want to miss something when it's free. A lot of times they'll be like, okay, well, I can miss it. Now I'm gonna tell you what I do specifically. So a good majority of my workshops are, well, first of all, most of them are free, but that's because I tell people I'm gonna find somebody to pay me so it can be free for you, right? And so that's how I do
Yeah.
my things. But they're all live. So if you miss it, okay, you missed it,
Mhm.
right? And so the thing is, no, it's not recorded. No, you can't come back and watch it later. And I think that sense of urgency keeps people where they're like, no, I can't miss it. I definitely need to come. So that's what works for me specifically. And I don't have a membership. I've been tinkering back and forth with the idea and the concept of doing it, but just give me a small snippet. If you had to rank it from 1 to 10, one being the least difficult, the most easy thing ever, and 10 being like, whoa, okay, I don't even know if I want to do this anymore. It's so much work. What would your ranking be for like the building and sustaining of a community? Like, where would you rank that? Because building it probably wasn't that hard, but sustaining it over these years. So where would you rank that? Good question, right?
you know, it's not easy.
Okay.
It's my business has shifted. I had the recording stuff. I'm kind of like now I'm like going to pivot solely to the community because it takes up so much of my time and it's actually been more successful for me. That's on a level of difficulty. I'll say 7, 8.
Okay.
Um, but for me, it's the challenge of making sure that I'm always providing value to my members, right? I'm always making sure that when it's time for them to renew their membership, whether it's monthly or yearly, that they're like, I can't be without this, or I love this so much. So you
Mhm.
have to be hands-on, you have to be active, and you have to care about the people in your community. I think that's one of the things I noticed in some other communities that you don't get is that hands-on interaction. So a lot of my members, they know, like I said, they have my number, they know how to reach me. We either met in person or we can, I always tell my members, you have any questions, you can, if I can, I'll get on and I know it's not scalable, I'll get on a Zoom call with you. So
Yeah.
that's the part that takes a lot of time, and energy. And sometimes you got to clear up your calendar and deal with this stuff. So I think for me though, truth be told, it's about 7, 8, and that's because I'm actively just constantly trying to figure out how to make things better and how to improve not only my business but the people who are members of the community's businesses as well.
Yes, and I appreciate that. So, this has been one of the quickest 30 minutes that we've ever done here. So, everybody, I wanted to kind of end on this note. Two great things. You can follow Black Podcasters Association and go ahead and join blackpodcastassociation.com. Go right there and join. And I just want to leave you with this. Two Harks Online shows and podcasts said Corey is great. He looks like he's in the death row picture with all of that black on black. Keep grinding, bro. I could not, it's no way. I had to end with that because I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking, you like the Suge of podcasting right now. You were definitely giving me that. So,
I got the blackout curtains going on. My room is, I'm not trying to do all the investment. I'm going to be changing locations soon. So it's like, I'm not trying to do all the investment in my background and everything until I have a spot that I could put all that time and energy into.
it's just,
I want all your attention on me.
Yes, and I love it, right? It makes sense. And so that I just had to read that for you. So Corey, is there any like last minute, like if you have one piece of motivation, a word or something like that that you like to leave people with?
I just, I like to tell people don't put the pressure on yourself. Like this is especially in the content creation space, it's a grind. It's a slow grind. Just focus on bringing value, putting out great content, and stuff, and be connected with your audiences, and just be patient. You got to just grind it out and collaborate with people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I do. I love that. And so, what I'm going to do, because Corey does have his conference that's coming up, if you just want to give them the date, and then everybody else, I'll share it once you see on the social media and all the rest of that. And then maybe we can have you back, or Talib, or a combination of you guys, once we get closer to the conference, to just let people know. Because, I always want people to know about good things. And I am coming. So me and Mr. Brown will be there. We've already put it on the calendars. We didn't get tickets yet, but we will be getting tickets. But we are definitely coming. So just let them know what's the date.
Well, get those tickets because it's still at early bird pricing, so you can save some money. But it's October 21st to 22nd of 2023. It's going to be in Baltimore this year. Afros and Audio. They're our community partners. Talib is the founder of Afros and Audio, so we work very close together in getting this great, wonderful conference together for Black podcast creators. It's the largest, the best. I'm going to always sell it. Podcast festival conference, if you're really interested in connecting with creatives in this space and really walking away with learning some great stuff, because there's some great people that have some great topics you're not going to find at any other conference.
Yes. And I can't wait to see it. Like I told him earlier, and usually anybody knows I don't even go over my time. I'm usually right on 30 minutes, but I just felt like we had to throw that in there. I couldn't let him leave without saying it. And then you guys with these comments in the background, you got me cracking up. So
the guys,
please help him, because I guess Steve is Podcasters Live. He said he's going to send you a few lights for your background, dude. So it's like I'm listening to you, but these comments in the background.
I love my community. We have jokes. We have a great time. So shout out to Steve, and shout out to Rob and everybody else, and Two Harks and everybody else that's watching. I love you guys, and I really appreciate the trolling and the support.
Yes, love the trolling. I've never had anybody troll on my stuff, so this is like the best today for me to get. Corey, thank you so much for bringing your energy, bringing your knowledge and your expertise to us today. Everybody else, if you're watching on the replay, you can still leave comments, and we go ahead and we do check them and we share them as well. And at the end of it, we always tell you, make sure you show up and show out and continue to give it to the people. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.